All right, Chem 1, we're going to now get into physical properties. And physical properties, how would somebody describe a substance to somebody else? In other words, let's suppose aliens landed and you want to explain to the aliens what water is, or how they would be able to recognize what water is. Okay? So evidently they can live without water, and you wanted to show them that this is something that you can sustain yourselves with, even though they don't need the water to sustain themselves. So how does that work? Well, how do we go about doing that? All right? So to describe something to its unique characteristics, you need to describe what you can see or what you can measure. Those are called physical properties. Now, physical properties are pretty easy to figure out for the most part, particularly the observable ones. The measurable ones will actually have to take some lab work to it. So what I would like for you to do right now is write down as many physical properties that you can think of about water. So pause the video now and write down as many as you can think of, and then turn the video back on and we will continue. See how you do. Okay, let's see what we have for comparison. So the first thing I have is that a lot of people, when I ask them this question, they will write down that water is wet. Well, yeah, water is wet, but that's not a very scientific way of explaining what that means. And this is probably an advanced culture, and they would like to know what does wet mean. They may not have rain or anything like that, but what they do have over there, most likely, are phases. Okay? So phases are states of matter, like solid, liquid, or gas. And there are others as well that we'll get into later on. So instead of saying water is wet, you put it in more scientific terms, you say water is a liquid at room temperature. It's more specific, and it's not as colloquial. Now the word colloquial means it's like a slang that we use for a particular area of the world that is just inherent to themselves. So when we say water is wet, it's almost so not scientific that it doesn't make sense to anybody who doesn't know what wet means. So we try to be a little more specific, and we say water is a liquid at room temperature. Another thing you could say is, oh, water is clear. But that again is an issue, because clear doesn't necessarily mean colorless. You know, it could be blue, it could be red, it could be anything. So what you need to do instead is say water has no color, or water is colorless. You can have a blue liquid that's clear, you can see through it. You can have a red liquid that's clear, you can see through it. It's just too ambiguous. But if you're trying to distinguish it from all the other liquids, you would say it is colorless. And that would be a more scientific way to describe that. Other things you could have said is water has no taste, or it's just plain tasteless. Water is odorless, you can't smell it unless it's got stuff mixed in it, but then it's no longer water, it's a mixture. However, I would bet many of you did not have some measurable items that could have been included. I mean, you might have, but here are some that you could have included. Water has a freezing point of 0 degrees Celsius and 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Or you can say water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius, but we call that in scientific terms a freezing point. Okay? If water boils at 100 degrees Celsius or 212 degrees Fahrenheit, we call that a boiling point. Those are measurable quantities. One that you probably have not used unless you dealt with it if you've had physical science is water has a density of 1.00 grams per cubic centimeter, or 1.00 grams per milliliter. And that's something we're going to talk about in the next chapter, how we come up with that. But every substance has its own set of unique characteristic physical properties that distinguish it from everything else. And these are very important aspects as well as what we can see. So if you can define it as often as you can, in many ways that you can, that is going to be a much preferable way of describing this. So all of these are seen and measured, which qualify as physical properties. So here are 4 substances that I want you to find physical properties for. Sodium chloride, better known as table salt, C12H22O11, which is also known as table sugar or sucrose, copper, and fluorine. Now, you go, I don't know what that stuff, well, how am I supposed to know that? Well, the power of research tools, search engines, whether it's Google, Dogpile, Yahoo, whatever, go and find it. You should be able to find 4 properties of each one. Okay? All right, we'll see you next time.